Welcome everyone to week 4 of District 5180's Festival of Learning. They believe they were saying there's only 2 presentations left after this one this evening. So that is a major accomplishment. And I just want to commend everyone who worked on this event, specifically Rob Sachs, Desiree Wilson, Karen Sendro, Mary Jo Edmondson. I know I'm missing so many people, all of our tech volunteers, but I think I got it. My name is Lindsay. I am a proud member of Point West Rotary. I don't want to delay too much. This is a friendly reminder. Please keep yourselves muted. You may have your videos on or off. If you'd like, feel free to turn them off if you need to step away and just listen. We have a great presentation this evening, very informative and important for our district on human trafficking and what Rotary is doing in that realm. Feel free to put your questions in the chat as they come up throughout the presentation. So if something comes up regarding a specific slide, go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm sure all of you know how to use that function by now. And I will allow our to let our presenters know and they can answer it. And then there might be a little time for general Q&A at the end. But I don't want to delay any further. Everyone is here for our wonderful presenters who have been working on this topic for what I heard before this it's been almost, I guess, 5-6 years now, or if not more. So I now would love to introduce our presenters this evening, Brian Gladden and Bob Deering. I will turn it over to you both.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Welcome everyone who is here. Looks like we have 13 of us, so 14 now. All right, we're packing them in. Let me share my screen, and I'm sharing. Bob, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself and kick us off.
I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I'm Bob Deering. Brian and I started this back in 2016, and you're going to hear a little bit about what has happened over the years and what we've accomplished. So, Brian, why don't we'll start with the video, and then we'll kind of get into the project.
Absolutely, thank you. And this is Brian Gladden. So. Past president of the Roseville Rotary Club and past AG, and foundation, District 5180 Foundation Board as well with Bob, and longtime Rotarian, as many of you are, I'm sure. And so thanks for being with us. I'm going to play the video. It's about a 3-minute video, 4 or 5-minute video of what we did to give us some high level and answer probably a lot of questions, and then we'll dig into the details and kind of set the stage for what we've done and hopefully where we can go.
At its core, human trafficking is exploitation and the deprivation of personal liberty.
Worldwide, human trafficking is you're talking about billions of dollars.
This is a $20 billion global business, and a lot of that business is driven in the U.S.
It can happen anywhere, and again, they prey on people's vulnerabilities.
And everybody out there either has kids, grandkids, friends of friends that have girls, which is the majority, in this target age.
It can happen in big cities, it can happen in small towns, it can happen in rural areas too.
So we have to do something about it. We've got to continue to educate, help them make safer choices so they can defend themselves.
Education of the community is important because there's so many people that think of human trafficking as just being this distant issue that happens in some third world country, and they'll ship these foreigners in.
Raising awareness can help in a lot of ways.
The target age for human trafficking in the U.S. is 11 to 14-year-old girls. That's exactly the age of my girls when we started this.
Whether it be teachers, parents, community members, if they know what signs are and what to look for and what makes some of these young girls vulnerable, then they can help that way, either by calling the police or helping directly to the young women.
But the most important tool that we have to combat human trafficking is prevention through education, and that's why it's so important to make sure we are arming young people with the tools to protect themselves and to protect each other.
The public awareness campaign was 3 months, and our partner, the Voices and Faces Project in Chicago, created an in-your-face ad campaign called The Ugly Truth. Street art, buses, light rail, gas stations.
They were open to the idea that this shouldn't be one thing. You know, it shouldn't just be education. It shouldn't just be advocacy. It shouldn't just be community outreach. It shouldn't just be a media campaign, that it needed to be this multifaceted effort.
Prevention through education is the gap that they said Rotary could fill. We need prevention starting at a young age in our classrooms, to our kids, to our teachers, and we need to educate the public at large of really what does trafficking look like in the U.S. especially, and what can they do about it.
So Three Strands Global Foundation in 2014 joined forces with Love Never Fails and Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives, and we created Protect, prevention organized to educate children on trafficking.
As a teacher, the Protect curriculum it's one of the most awe-inspiring lessons when you watch your own class and then the students that you don't know. There is an attention that you don't have on an everyday basis with a room full of adolescents.
The idea was to holistically create a program that would be a continuum of care, from protocols and making sure that teachers and administrators and nurses would know what to do if they actually identified a victim of human trafficking, all the way to training the educators and educational staff, the curriculum for students, and then data.
What was exciting about this project with Rotary is that they and we came together and identified people doing really extraordinary work around this issue.
We thought elementary school is really the place, right? We want to make sure, knowing statistics, knowing when kids are accessed online and have their first phone or iPad, we wanted to make sure that we get before that.
The kids in the classroom, that's what we're all here for. That's what we do. So there is this silence that's in the room and all eyes are fixated on what's the next thing you're going to tell them, what's the next fact. It's a really moving curriculum.
We have educated over 32,000 students in just the past year and taught over 800 teachers in just the past year. That number will double in the next school year.
I would encourage every Rotary community to adopt the same process that the Sacramento Rotarian community did.
For Rotary to really make a difference, we need other clubs and other regions to say, I want this program, and I'm willing to step up and be a partner on it.
I really think that Rotarians, because they are leaders of the community, have the ability to really set the stage for movements in every community they're in. If we can really work on empowering young people to believe in themselves and believe that they have dreams that go beyond anything that would ever have to do with trafficking or a trafficker, that's really, in my opinion, the way to end human trafficking.
All right. Let me stop the video. Hopefully that gave you guys some preface to what we're going to talk about. I'm going to share my screen now and get our PowerPoint up and going here. Bear with me 2 seconds. All right, I believe you can all see my screen. So making difference in our own backyard, that really was the kind of theme for our presentations to other Rotary clubs, other districts around the world. And what we're going to talk to you tonight is, why did we start the project? What was it? How did we do it? What were the outcomes? And then what's next? And how do we sustain this and keep moving forward? So initially, back in 2016 is when we started this, January 2016. And Bob and I for years have been talking about, let's do something big. Let's highlight the Sacramento District 5180, something global, something we're doing local. And he came back and from a peace conference and said, it's human trafficking. And I looked at him like deer in the headlights. Okay, what do we do and how do we do it? And I know nothing about it, but I'm against it. So, okay, let's do it. So what we did was we spent 6 months getting educated on what is human trafficking, how can Rotary help and putting a project together with best practices. As Rotarians do, we usually don't create anything. We bring people together and we fund it, and we're the glue to make things happen with relationships. So why human trafficking? Well, it's the third largest and the fastest growing criminal activity in the world, only behind drugs and guns. And that was shocking to me. That's from the FBI. Over 40 million people globally are enslaved. That's the population of California that are trafficked, and that's really modern day slavery. That's both labor and sex trafficking. And in the US, we kind of think of trafficking as sex, but actually labor is bigger around the world. 2 million children are exploited in sex trafficking globally every year. And it's a $150 billion industry, which is why it's growing so much, because it's lucrative. And the entry age is 12 to 14-year-old girls. That's the target. Every day in the US, there's 100,000 people trafficked. And California has the highest volume of sex trafficking in the US. And so why Sacramento? Well, Sacramento is one of the hotbeds for sex trafficking in the US. So this is a local, nationwide, global issue that we thought, all right, we can put a stake in the ground, try and make a difference locally, and create a playbook and a platform for other people to follow what we've done. So if you had one slide to look at it, it would be this slide. And this is from Polaris, which is the group that really tracks all the data, works with the National Human Trafficking Hotline back in DC. And basically year over year, we're looking at about a 20% increase in human trafficking. And this was from 2019. So the data for 2020 is probably going to be even another 15 to 20% increase. And that's good and bad. Well, it's bad because it's obviously increasing, but the good piece is it's increasing because we're actually tracking it and we're acknowledging that it's happening. And you can't manage something until you're monitoring it. If you don't believe it's happening, then you're not looking for it. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to put it in a database and track it and have metrics around it to actually have a database to have this increase. So the fact that every state now is showing that there is activity means that they're actually aware of it and they're tracking it. And if you go back, you can see that the hotbeds, the East Coast, Florida, and California, the usual suspects where shipping from people coming from outside the country, a lot of foreign nationals, easy access between Mexico, Canada, the Pacific Rim and overseas. So when we got educated around what is human trafficking and how can we help, one of the first things that we were educated on was what is human trafficking, what it looks like. And this was new to me because like many people, you think of, oh, it's somebody that's kidnapped, and whether they're taken from here overseas or shipped from overseas here, and poor non-US person. And that's wrong. That was maybe the old days, and that still happens, but that's the minority percentage of what happens. It's usually US kids that are trafficked here locally by somebody that they know or have become friends with. And the first bullet, exploited by friends and family, is the number one thing, which is really, really scary. And the new ways of trafficking is not the old tactic of, again, just kidnapping. It can be, but it's really around fraud and coercion, becoming friends with somebody, getting into their inner circle. And then over time, that trust, they then violate it. They take them somewhere, they tell them to do something either for love or because they have to, get them hooked on drugs. And there's a lot of things here. There's the drugs, the violence, coercion, but also this thing called the Romeo syndrome, which we learned about, which is really usually men, 18 to 20 something, that befriend younger girls, show them affection, buy them gifts, become their boyfriend, and then after time make them do these acts. And so they're girls usually with vulnerabilities, can be boys as well, that are looking for that figure to be nice to them and to show them some love. What's interesting of what we learned of how we can help is that most of the public, as well as teachers and kids, don't know what to look for. And so we were told that, there's a lot of great services for victims, places they can go to get help, and obviously have law enforcement. But the third leg of that is the prevention up front of educating kids and teachers and the public of what does trafficking actually look like now, and how do we educate kids to make safer choices. So that started the grant, and we called this the Reverse Grant. And it was approved in November of 2017. And what it consisted of was two pieces, really. A grant of $213,000 that was both local and international funds, plus an additional funding that wasn't matched of just US-based funding of $170,000. So we had $383,000 in the project, which when you look at Rotary terms, really is about $2 million in actual value, because as you know, we get discount, people are giving, free services because it's a Rotary project. So when we vetted it all out, you're looking at about $2 million if you just went out and said, I want to do a campaign and paid retail prices. It was the largest, and still is, human trafficking grant in the history of Rotary. It's the largest international grant of 2017, period, in the US, because as you know, most international grants are, the money flows out. So having the money flow into the US was very different. And it was the largest human trafficking prevention initiative in the history of the Sacramento region. So how does this break down? Well, our partner, which we'll get into, 3 Strands, did the education piece. $230,000 went to the Protect program, which was to educate upwards of 80,000 students and teachers over the couple-year period. And the other piece was $150,000 for a 3-month public awareness campaign by The Ugly Truth, which you saw Ann Ream there. And we'll talk about the impact of both of those. So the first one, we said, well, let's make sure the public knows what to look for, who to call, what to do, so that they can actually say something when they see something. And this public awareness campaign was called The Ugly Truth. You saw in the video Ann Ream, who's the CEO. She is a victim. She's a survivor of trafficking. She's from Chicago, and she created a company, a nonprofit called the Voices and Faces Project. They rolled this campaign out called The Ugly Truth, which is an in-your-face ad campaign, in 4 cities before we brought it here: San Diego, Chicago, DC, and San Francisco. And we said, let's bring it here and also brand it with Rotary, because before that it was just the Voices Faces on their own, working with district attorneys and counties, but Rotary wasn't involved. So this is the first branding with Rotary. So what did we do? Well, you can see the Rotary logos. We put in-your-face ads all around the Sacramento region, from Oroville to El Dorado Hills to Elk Grove to West Sacramento, a lot downtown, I-80, 50, talking about this ugly truth. Well, the ugly truth really is, what is the myth? It's the world's oldest profession, as you see here. And then really, what is the ugly truth? That it's the most dangerous form of exploitation. And then it talks about some statistics, and then the National Human Trafficking Hotline phone number, and then Rotary branding. And so these were in light rail, bus stops, street art, billboards. And we had such an impact. If you know anything about advertising, which we had to learn about, an impression is when you see something like a billboard. If you're driving down the highway and at a time of day, there's 1,000 cars that pass by every minute of a billboard, well, that's 1,000 impressions, because you're going to see that billboard. In the 3 months that we ran this, was around the fair time, as well as in the summer, as well as some other sporting events. We had 78 million impressions that we'll touch on in just a little bit about impacts. The second piece of this was around educating the kids and teachers about how to make safer choices, to prevention through education, because most of the time it's the young kids that get involved because they are coerced and fraud, and they don't know that someone is actually out to harm them. Then they get into the life, and it's hard to get out of it. So 3 Strands, actually El Dorado Hills, and Ashley is a Rotarian, El Dorado Hills Rotarian, created a program that they had been doing for several years. They're actually the largest group that creates and delivers curriculum anywhere in the country around human trafficking. And so they're right here in our backyard. So we said, great, let's leverage the best practices that they have and bring them in, let them do their work. And so their work is actually creating an entire continuum and trainings and protocols where they will go to the school district, the county, the school itself, and get the stakeholders, train the teachers on the curriculum, what to look for, and then create protocols. If you see something, who are you going to tell? Well, okay, the school nurse, the principal, the community service officer. Well, do they know what to do? And what's interesting is 99.9% of all schools had no idea what to do. Do I just call 911? Do I tell somebody? Principal had no idea what to do. So they got educated. And we have all these drills and protocols for fire alarms. There was nothing for human trafficking. So they do that at a county level sometimes, then deliver the education to the teachers to become the trusted advisor. So train the trainer, and then the teacher can deliver that to the students because they see them every day. They need to know what to look for. If I see a sign, then I can have that talk with the student to be that trusted person and to be able to identify the signs and be trauma informed. So they talk about, all these groups are involved, how to take action, prevention. We had community nights, parent nights, and even Q&A sessions before these. So the curriculum itself, what is it? Well, you have 4 different kind of segments. And back in 5th grade, the elementary school, really around safe people and safe choices, right? We don't really talk, they don't use the words human trafficking, kidnapping, slavery. It's all around, who's in your safe space, what are some good choices to make, stranger danger type things. And then in the middle school, 7th grade, 8th grade, it's much more about you, your body, that it's yours, you're a masterpiece, you can, say no, you need to understand right and wrong. And then into high school in 9th grade is really in your face around human trafficking, because this is a significant target age. And obviously high school kids know what's going on, the signs to look for, how people are trying to trick them, how they're becoming friends online with them using technology. And then in 11th grade juniors, it's much more about linking current human trafficking as modern day slavery, linking it to historical slavery, from labor, sex trafficking, and all of these historical perspectives. So getting the message out, what did we do? Well, we wanted to let everyone know what was happening. We did a press release. We also had Anne-Marie Schubert do a press release from the DA's office. We had a press event and collaboration. We brought in 50 different stakeholder groups, victim services, advocates, law enforcement, SAC PD, the county, child services, and all the nonprofits who worked in the space locally. We, My Sister's House, 3 Strands, obviously, other groups, to talk about what we were going to do, get feedback from them on the messaging, what they'd like to see change, what they want to see included, to make sure that everyone's bought in to understand how it could positively affect them, because we are helping the entire ecosystem. And then we did a press event on the steps of the Capitol, Bob and I with Chief Hahn, Assemblyman and the sheriffs, Anne-Marie Schubert, as well as our partners, 3 Strands and Voices Faces. And here we got another photo op. We also did trainings for you Rotarians, if maybe you were in the classes back in 2017, 2018. We rolled these out several times a year and protect, so you could understand the curriculum, get to see it, so you could talk intelligently about it. A lot of people on the committee, and they wanted to be able to tell other clubs, other districts what we're doing, other schools that maybe their kids go to. And so also the Rotarian Action Group Against Slavery that Bob will talk about was very involved, and we tried to get the word to them to be a more national level. So what were the outcomes? Well, Bob, are you taking this or is this me?
I'm taking this.
That's what I thought.
I'm taking good job, Brian, and thank you very much. Or you want me to put my screen up? Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
That's okay. I can share my screen. Hang on a second. See my screen okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the outcomes. What kind of impact did we have in our communities? And really, COVID kind of hit us at the very end of this. I'm going to tell you right now, the grant has been closed. All the monies have gone out. We've not all been spent by Three Strands Global, but they are keeping us informed as to how they are spending it and when they can spend it and when they can get back into the school districts. So probably one of the greatest things that happened to us is the global inquiries we receive. We've received inquiries from all over, not just the United States, but from all over the globe. And District 5180, at least in combating human trafficking, is on the map. And I think everyone in 5180 can be very, very proud of that. Brian talked about we formed relationships with nonprofits, not just the couple of nonprofits that we worked with, but we talked to other ones. My club right now is working with another one of those nonprofits, City of Refuge. They are a nonprofit that brings trafficked ladies in and houses them in the South Sacramento area. So we've starting to form relationships, and I know other clubs in the district are doing that also. We really have developed community relationships, and you saw that in the video. Anne-Marie Schubert, she didn't have to put out a press release after our press release, but she did because she felt what we were doing was very important, and she wanted to really help us. Chief Hahn has been in Sacramento, has been a big supporter and has done a number of things. What we've learned over it is we've increased the knowledge of our teachers and our students who have seen these programs by 80%. You know, part of a global grant is you need to have do statistics and find out. And through the Arizona State University, the Three Strands Global is getting both a beginning questions and ending questions, and in finding that when we're able to get into the schools, both teachers and students, their knowledge is increased and they understand more about what is happening as opposed to not. This program has been in every school district in some way, shape, or form in District 5180. They're aware of it. They might not have used it, but they are aware of what we're doing, and that's one of the feedbacks. And we've heard that more than once. Probably the most important thing to me is the student self-identifications. I've been to maybe a dozen of these presentations that have been done, and I can say that in every one I have seen, and these are from just a classroom to maybe an assembly where you have 300-400 students. There's at least 2 or 3 students after it's all over. You see them go up to presenters and start to talk to them. No, I don't know what is said. I don't need to know what was said, but I'm told afterwards that what they were talking about is happening to those students, and we are starting to give them the information they need to stay out of the problems. Brian told you earlier, we had 78 million impressions. We were hoping that the Polaris through the hotline could give us how many more calls came out of the Sacramento area. They were unable to give that to us, but during the time frame that we were doing our campaign, there was about a 15 to 20% increase. They have said nationwide there's a 15 to 20% increase. Because California is a hotbed, my feeling is that we help to solidify that, at least in our area. Probably the most disappointing statistic that we got is we've trained 650 parents. We learned early on that we can't train the teachers without the parents knowing what's going on. And so our formula we originally had was changed 2 and 3 times as we went along. And we started having parents meetings. The parents meetings were later on in the development of the grant, 2019, 2020, so on and so forth. This is a disappointing number to me. We trained over almost 1,400 teachers in the time frame that we have done up to now, until COVID stopped us. And at that point in time, we had trained almost 57,000 students. There's still money in the coffers, and we know that there are other school districts, one of them being predominantly Elk Grove School District, which I'll talk about in just a couple minutes. Sustainability, everybody knows Rotary projects need to have sustainability, and that's an important part. Since the grant is done, Brian and I, about a year ago, put out a letter to every Rotarian in the district whereby we said, we've done our job. We've started this thing. We would sure hate to see District 5180 stop doing it, stop working in the area of human trafficking. And here's things that you can do. Here is something that the Rotary Club of Laguna Sunrise did with their program, and I'm really proud of what they did. But what they did is they took a district grant, $2,000 of a district grant, along with $3,500 of their own money. They're a 50-member club, and they developed billboards in their junior high schools in Elk Grove. They talked to Ugly Truth. Ugly Truth gave them a cutback in some of the Ugly Truth type of campaigns. And in 5 transit shelters in Elk Grove, they put up the same campaign that we conducted through that 3-month period. They also worked with the people who own the electronic sign in Elk Grove, and both the northbound and southbound got the ads that we're seeing on the electronic signs. And more importantly, the Rotary Club of Laguna Sunrise was very instrumental in getting us into the Elk Grove Unified School District. One of the things we thought, since we had money and here's something that's mandated, people were just going to jump at what we're doing. Well, that's in this day and age, that's not going to happen. And we had to go through the various curriculum boards of Elk Grove Unified School District to get to it. But the Rotarians in Laguna Sunrise, who have a lot of juice in that community, they helped work it through to where now this program is now in all of the 7th, 9th, and 11th grades, and teachers and students will be educated through the Protect program. So I really think that I really want to thank Laguna Sunrise for what they did and bring it to that community. I'd love to see other clubs jump in and do this. Here are some of the things that we said in our letter that we sent out. We said you adopt a school, pick a school, your high school. If you're in Orangeville, pick the high school in Orangeville. If you're in Fair Oaks, pick the high school in Fair Oaks. But adopt a school and work with 3 strands. They will work with you to develop the programs in those high schools. San Juan is doing it school by school. It's not something that's been mandated by the school district. So you got to go into the schools. Up in the Yuba and Sutter counties, you got to get into the schools as opposed to the Office of Education. It's not working that way. I've been on the foundation committee a number of years, and you could create a district grant, develop a project to combat human trafficking in your area, create a district grant. You can get up to $5,000, matching 5,000. There's a $10,000 project you could be doing in your own backyard. You don't have to work with Three Strands Global. You don't have to do the outreach campaign. I just got through telling you what my club's working with City of Refuge. It's a nonprofit in the South Sacramento area, and we're starting to work with them on the second year in a row on various projects they have going on that is combating human trafficking. We all have interact clubs that we're working with. Leverage your interact clubs. One of the first projects that we went was out in Orangevale, and the Interact Club is the one who pushed this in their high school, and the school out there. I can't not right on the tip of my tongue, but Interact clubs. This is something we can leverage them, and the four-way test and what have you. This is a great way. You can create your own public awareness campaigns, and you can use the services of Rotary Action Group Against Slavery. And I'm going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. So what has happened since we brought this to our district? Well, right now we are kind of in the initial stages, and if I could get off my dime to start working on it, we're looking to develop a Rotary Club that's focused on combating human trafficking. These type of clubs now are becoming very important to Rotary, and if you have a one-dimensional where I just want to have develop projects to combat human trafficking, then maybe we can develop clubs that can do that. They're right now developing a club on veterans issues. This is another one that I really want to look at to develop. There's 3 districts throughout the United States now that have their own human trafficking Rotary Club developing. I've been asked through Rotary to help develop a one-day workshop in the Western United States to highlight and combat human trafficking. There are 22 people in the Western United States that we're going to be developing a summit somewhere in I believe it's going to be in Southern California to highlight this, that we're going to be streaming out to everybody in the Western United States. So these are things that have come from what both Brian and I have been doing. Both Brian and I have been giving speeches throughout the Western United States highlighting our project. I've given speeches in Oregon, in Washington, in Nevada, all up and down California, not just on Zoom, but there were times before COVID that I was going to various districts and doing 2 and 3 speeches in 2 or 3 days to various Rotary clubs. So what we're doing in 5180 is known at least throughout the Western United States, and yes, it is known throughout the United States and the world. Right now, there are 3 districts that have a global grant in process that is basically duplicating what we did. They have come to us. They have come to Three Strands Global to get the education part of it, and have found that it's much easier the second and third and fourth times to put this project together. We gave both Brian and I gave them the snags that we were running into, what the problems were, why we couldn't get matching funds for that extra $180,000 Brian talked about, and now they are starting to put them together. And there's one right now that's going to basically do all of the school districts in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. That's one of them right now. Rotary Action Group Against Slavery. That's something both Brian and I got involved in. We at the Atlanta convention, we were just in the initial stages of putting this together, and we were asked to come talk to the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery. Anybody who was on the the presentation that I did yesterday on action groups knows that these are groups of people throughout the entire Rotary world who have a passion to do something in a certain area. Rotary Action Group Against Slavery is fighting human trafficking. That is their main focus. But we started talking to them in Atlanta, and when Desiree and I were in Toronto, both of us met with them one more time, and they were starting to say, hey, this education, this is something we need to put our arms around. And we met with the education people of Rotary International, and all of a sudden Rotary International says, hey, this is something we need to really be looking at. All started in District 5180. So we helped bring this focus to education in combat and human trafficking. This was us. This is what we did. Through this, we developed relationships throughout the world. There are people in Australia, there's people in New Zealand, there's people in England, there's people in Thailand, all of them saying, hey, how can we do something? How can we do something to combat human trafficking? But education has got to be the focal point. Yes, we can do something to help people who were taken out of it, but that's a onesie twosie type thing. We can make a big difference if we can educate the populace in some way, shape, or form. I'm one of 3 coordinators of Rotary Action Group in Slavery in California, Nevada. Ashley Bryant from 3 Strand Global is one of the second one, and there's a third one down from San Diego. It's our job to give speeches through California and Nevada to talk about educating and what you can do. And I'm also on a task force because of what we did. There is a 8-person task force in the Rotary Action Group, and they're making education through, trafficking education, the focal point of where they want to go going forward. They have just put out $1,000, or they're going to be very soon, $1,000 stipends to any district, to 10 districts that want to develop an educational program in their district, to help them to do through this development. What we have done is not just here in California. Texas now has this education programs. Michigan now has these education programs. Utah now has these education programs, and they're talking about it in the state of Georgia at this point in time. So it's not just Brian and Bob. It's not just the people who worked with us in District 5180. It's a worldwide effort to educate our students, educate our teachers, and educate our parents. So I think, Brian, I think that's about ends it. For me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I see there's a few chats, and I saw a couple of them come up. It's just giving information, but Lindsay, is there anything in there that we need to answer? Or if that's the case, I'd love to have anybody open up your mic and ask us questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Folks, feel free to put any in the chat or raise your hand, physically or using the Zoom, and we can have Brian and Bob answer any questions or any comments.
I'm going to go ahead and make a comment, if I may. I got to work on this project with Brian and Bob, but I got to tell you, I'm so proud of what you guys have done. And this is the power of Rotary. 2 people got together and said, we need to do something in our district. And I'm amazed by the video, amazed by the work that we did and continue to do, and what the clubs are doing. So I really appreciate what you guys have done, the hours and hours of effort and time and energy to put into this project and get us to where we are. So I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
But thank you, Desiree. But it's not just Brian and I, and we had 20 to 30 different people who volunteered to help and have done it. It's a Rotary Club of Laguna Sunrise. It's a Rotary Club of East Sacramento. It's a Rotary Club of Roseville. All the people who have helped us along the way, and we just became the mouthpiece.
Yeah, most of you. So Leanne, Ken, Mary Lynn, Karen, you guys were all in the committees. So thank you. You guys did tons of stuff. So that was awesome.
We do have one question in the chat from Leanne Renero, which is, what is RI doing to help promote your efforts worldwide? This seems like something Rotary International needs to promote, given it's a worldwide issue.
I'll try to, let me try to address that, Brian, because through the Rotary Action Group, I've seen this. Rotary's stance right now is we can't do anything until we eradicate polio. Most of our money is going to that. We're going to the global grants is it. I got a little bit of a sense when President Holgernack was talking to the Rotary Club of Sacramento at a meeting a few months ago. And someone asked that question about could human trafficking be, the next worldwide issue? And he basically said, well, that's a political issue. And I'm going to give, kind of the politically correct answer is Evanston needs to be educated. And this has gone back to the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery. And part of what the committee I'm on is we are developing ways to get to the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, and I think you'll see something coming through in the next 6 months or so, and you might not see it, but I think the foundation trustees will see that this is a lot bigger than what they think, and especially when we start doing things like the summit we're going to do here on the West Coast. There is at the Zone Institute in Houston, it's centered around human trafficking, so it's starting to get a little bit of a groundswell. Again, it is kind of a political issue, because what we think of human trafficking is not what is thought of as human trafficking in Asia. And where parents are selling their kids because they can't feed them or what have you. So culturally it's a little bit of a minefield you have to walk through.
Yeah, I'll just add a few comments there. There's probably never going to be another thing like polio, right? There's never going to be one thing at Rotary's. It's going to be a broad swath. But a couple of things that I think that, besides what Bob talked about, that could help is Marga Huco, John Huco's wife, is in Chicago Rotary 1, and she's, I think, now the president this year, or maybe it was last year. So she was very interested. She was at the Peace Conference a year and a half ago when we presented, and we talked several times. She really wants to bring this to her club, and obviously having the ear of John is a big help, and then get to the trustees. So she's really interested, in what's a big help there is the Voices Faces project. Ann Ream, who you saw in the video, Ann is in Chicago. So we put Ann with Marga together. They've already met. So hopefully being there, Marga having John's ear, it can get a little bit inside traction, at least not as the next big thing, but hopefully more clubs and districts will know about it.
And Marga's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, the president of Chicago 1 next year. So.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you guys for being here. I know this is old hat to many of you on the call, because you were on the committee, you know all this stuff. So thank you guys again.
I don't see anything else in the chat, folks. Just if you have questions or thoughts or comments, feel free to go ahead and just jump in. And I just want to thank you both for a wonderful presentation and for all the work that you're doing. So I think Desiree summed it up quite nicely.
Well, Bob and I want to thank all of you who helped us on the committee too. So I called you guys all out, and we couldn't have done it without everybody. So you guys are awesome. Thank you.
I was just one more thing. If your Rotary Club is looking for projects, we'd be more than happy to help you develop something that in this area, because it's from Brian and I had not having the foggiest idea in 2016 what's doing. It's become a passion of mine to combat this, and I would love to help you, your clubs, and see it keep going in this district.
For just a couple grand a year, you can adopt a school and educate maybe a couple of schools in your district, a middle school, a high school, and have that as a reoccurring project, because you've taught the teacher and you just basically you're funding their license to get the curriculum each year from 3 strands, after the initial. So it's really easy to sustain it. It's really simple. Thank you, gang. We'll let you guys all go.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bob and Brian and everyone who attended.